Welcome in, everyone, from over at YouTube Live. I'm so happy to have you here. We are getting ready. You're a little bit in the green room here, getting ready to go live. It always takes a moment, too, to get into our YouTube function. It's like it says it's going live, but it takes a moment. So I'm getting a little moment here. I have Carolyn CJ Jones with us. Oh, cool. We're here. Right on. Okay, cool. Woo! We are here. Oh my gosh, Fresh Talks Global Vision. I have not seen you in a while. We've been doing this mindset, I want to say mindset transformation entertainment, but I feel like we do that every day. But we've been doing Mindset Matters to Heart lately. I've been interviewing people almost every other day. It's been crazy fun. It's really helped me grow as a person that's running a show, being able to listen to people that are on their journey. And I call them experts because these people that I've been interviewing every day, if you've been following my YouTube channel, is that these are people who have been stuck in the deep weeds and maybe even down the rabbit hole. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm giving up. This is it. This is it. And truly, their story is very inspiring. And I could have a guest on every single day because there's so many of you out there. If you're watching right now and you have a story, know that you're being seen and heard, because I believe that we are all out there partnering and helping each other. There is no way you can do this alone. You can't. There's just no way. There's just too much happening out there. And when our mind can just drive us crazy, we can get in those cycles. And that's what this series has been about. And it's been connected with Fresh Talks Global Vision, with this Mindset Matters to the Heart. I added that last part there a couple weeks ago because it's just organically being built. But welcome in today. My heart is ever growing and I'm learning more about myself. How about you? How is it getting into your heart? How is it? You go, well, I'm already heart centered if you're thinking that. And I'm like, hey, but you know what? No matter what, if you live to be 103, which I see this woman out there, 103, 106, she has like a 10-year plan. So I think we should have like a 10-year plan at least. I mean, come on. So this woman is still up leveling. I don't think we ever stop up leveling. And the seeking of that would be that you have some unhappy days. Unhappy is good. That's fine. But being aware of it, getting comfortable with it, knowing that there's a purpose, that there's a learnings, that's something that may be stopping you. For me, I get frozen, and I could still be doing stuff, but I'm not doing the best that I can. So if we take it another level here, you think about this. If we recognize our stressful days, the brain is, I would say, not the full truth. And follow me here. I'm having a hard day. I'm sad. I'm going deeper in it. I need to go take a nap. I need to call somebody and complain because I need to complain. I need to get it out. Oh my gosh, I'm at my wit's end. Okay, now the whole day is just ruined. So-and-so ruined it. You see where I'm going with this? And if you've seen the angles for you, own it, because that's where the energy is. Own it. There is no judgment on this. Everybody has it. I talk about inspiration all the time. I will still have those days. We all have those days. So learning about what that means. So whatever level you are, which means there's no competition because we can't really compare what's inside us. But I'm talking specifically to you. If you can lean in on those days, sometimes I can feel my heart and my stomach start getting wrapped because I'm like starting to close everybody off. I can start feeling that now right at the beginning. It's hard to stop because you're going down that rabbit hole. You're like, oh, woo. And you're like, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. There's joy in it, though. You know why? Because your body's used to it. So your brain, if you think about it, your brain's in its cycle. So if you believe everything your brain is doing, take a step back and think about this. Your brain is taking you hostage, taking you down a rabbit hole. Why think your brain is like telling you everything truthful? Why can't you just think of like positive things? Why can't you just do gratitude? Why can't you just call somebody and tell them that you love them? Why can't you just take a nap and not guilt trip yourself? Why not just go eat some sexy energy food, vegetables that you just go, oh my God, I just love this? Because your head is taking you hostage. So you can choose to do that. But I know that what I feel now, I can feel my heart being pulled on. I can feel my stomach being pulled on. And I'm like, I want to go down that route because this feels comfortable. Believe me, this is crazy. But you'll notice this if you start catching yourself, closing yourself off. And I go, come on, Rhonda, come on. You can pull it out. You can pull it out. You can pull yourself out. And then I'm like, no, I don't want to. Okay, I can do it. But I'm like, still like, my heart's like pulling me the other way. Like, yeah, you should go that way. But my head's going, no, go that way.
Exactly.
Exactly, CJ. But you see where I'm going with this? Please just give yourself time to think about this. Get yourself a pen, get yourself a piece of paper, your journal. I promise you, if you are catching on to some of these things I'm just throwing out there, believe me, I'll act crazy when I do some things I want you to kind of move on. I know I was doing this one day. Not, I don't think I did it on video because I can see myself, so I won't do that. I'm like, oh, Rhonda, this looks, but I was doing a retreat, a little sidebar here. And I started doing this, and this, because every time somebody said something really good, because everybody was falling down, because it went, these are my dreams. Nailed it. Next step. What's the next step? That means I have to get out there, I have to get exposure, and the whole team went down. And I go, oh, this is good. Not like, oh my gosh, I messed them up. Now I just messed the whole thing up. And I said, this is good. And so then I said, okay, so what'd you just say? Well, I could do a Facebook Live because this was a business coaching group. Yes. And I just hold my hand there. I go, what about you? What do you think? What did you say? And then, oh, whoops. And then they said something. I go, yes. And started doing this thing. I didn't know I was going to do it, but it felt so good in my body. I was just like, oh, And then when the whole thing was over, they were in high spirits and talking. And some people were still stuck because we will get stuck. I had a client come to me and say, it was really weird, Rhonda. Like that bad. Like it was like it kind of disturbed her. And I go, wasn't it? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, but that's the point. Didn't we get you out of that feeling? So you see what happens in our life is that you will move yourself out of the space of this terribleness, and all of a sudden you just feel really, really good. And then, but if you did it in a way that wasn't like, that made you feel good because it was different, you're like, that's weird. Is that really weird? Or is it that you're just doing it different than somebody else? Give yourself grace. You got yourself out of it. However, you got yourself out of it, come on. That's the good stuff. The brain is that you saying, that's weird. That's weird. And you're like, oh, I know. Then all of a sudden, all that good stuff will get lost. So I'm glad my client said that. And I said, but didn't we move you? So think about this. Whew, that was good stuff. Think about this. If you could slow down, give yourself a moment or more, have grace for yourself, to know that there's a higher purpose. You're going to get thrown stuff consistently. It's okay. The more you up level, which means for you, don't compare yourself to anybody else, but the more you up level, the more the shit is going to come at you. because we have limiting beliefs. We have abundance issues because we believe we can't have as much love as we have around us. We can't believe we can get a new
Right.
client. We can't believe that we can feel good. I
Right.
know I have a client that says, I want to tell you the truth, Rhonda. I don't know. Michelle, I can hear you. Please don't crumble.
Sorry.
And YouTube actually can't see it because whoever's speaking, it goes to them. But if you make that noise might put you on the main screen and totally take me off too. I'll tell you about Michelle. She's here for a purpose. But I don't want you to go down that rabbit hole and not believe that there's a purpose there because you're going to feel that so many times. I just don't want you to stop. I know you will, but I don't want you to stop. This is about mindset transformation entertainment. This is about you showing up. You don't have to show up 100%. Sometimes you walk away and you give yourself 5 minutes, you give yourself 2 days, whatever it is, but you come back because we are speaker locking arms. Hashtag speaker locking arms. We have 62,000 views out there, and I'm going to keep going. We're going to get 1 million. We're going to keep going and moving forward because this is something new that I'm starting to talk about, this big journey that we are all on. And if you're on board, you're in the right place. I hope that gets you kind of seated and ready for some stuff that we're going to be talking about because this is what you're going to get from everybody is the feeling of just helping you move forward. And I trademarked that mindset transformation entertainment.
Mm.
I want to bring, yeah, I did, Carolyn. It was like a couple grand, I think, to do that because that's important. It's like when you
Wow.
create something and you just know that, movies and music and entertainment has really moved me personally forward and talking to more people about like sometimes you just want to numb yourself even as a kid when you're scared. It's like your go-to. I feel safe here. So I did. I trademarked that, and it's wholeheartedly, like it's deeply in my heart. So
That's
I invited,
neat.
yeah. Okay, so I invited Michelle in this morning. Michelle, I've been hosting her show, and her podcast, and it's called "I Am Not My Diagnosis," and I love it because Michelle has had this connection with um, being ill, being ill, being ill, like 8 chronic diseases. And she's learning what that means because once it clears, she's like, here, wait, I just learned something about myself. So her podcast, you definitely want to go and check it out. Right now it's on Be Connected, and we'll make sure that we give you the link. Michelle, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Michelle had to meet us in her car because I said this is the time the show is, and it's just the timing of where she's going from point A to point B. She's like, "Can I meet in the car?" I go, "Hey, you can meet anywhere you want." Michelle, share with me more about your show because we've been doing some great stuff about. Tell them what you've been talking about. It's been real sensitive stuff to help people break through and kind of step up in life. I guess something like that.
Well, we've been talking about basically my life transformation. I got a second chance of life and how I'm living it differently this time.
Yeah. You've had many times of going down the rabbit hole and getting stuck there and deciding I'm not going to get stuck there. And you're a patient advocate, which I really
Right.
appreciate, is that you learning this journey about all the different ways to manage your journey. I know that we don't have a lot of time because we're kind of like in between stuff, but your podcast really pays attention to how we can be speaking to our body and challenging ourselves by pushing ourselves more. Can you talk about just like um, something around that you've been learning? Because we've been talking about perfectionism, dressing a certain way, trying to show up a certain way, and learning that that's not the only way in life. That's a way to kind of protect yourself and let's go in there a little bit about what we've been doing.
Yeah, so basically, we've been digging um,
Mm.
about certain situations that happened in my life. And I was brought up that I had to be perfect all the time. Nothing I could do was wrong. I had to perform, 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 perform. But in reality, that's not, you can't do it. You can't be perfect all the time. You can't be
Right.
on all the time. It's about digging deep and finding what your jewels are.
Mm, I know. Michelle, you really go there. Like you've been having these breakthroughs and you'll talk about them.
Yeah. Been
And
having
that's,
quite a
mhm,
bit of breakthroughs. It's even
yeah,
hard to know where to begin because there's been so many.
I know. And you're in the middle of one right now, which is so cool because we're gonna get you through this one too. And this isn't about chronic disease. It's more about life situations. We're not going to go there until Michelle breaks through that. And we'll be able to add that into her podcast because when you're in the middle of something, you do not want to be talking about it because it's hard to get out of it.
Yeah.
But we have talked about. Can we go in there? There's so many people that can connect about the perfectionism. And I know we have a few minutes and stuff, but I want you to share that because there's so many people, we're just kind of talking down to ourselves and thinking we have to show up a certain way. Can you give some insight on that? Because you've talked about it quite a few times now
Well,
and
I've
how that's
learned,
affected you.
yeah, one of the biggest things is, I have 8 chronic diseases. They're in remission, but when I get stressed out, everything seems to light up again. So I've had to learn how to calm down and learn to take one thing at a time.
I love how honest you're being. This is a new way of you saying it too. That's why I love that you have your podcast. Again, it's I am not my diagnosis. And on the YouTube channel that you're on and watching this show, you will actually catch her show because I get to host her. I'm just so happy about this because I've been coaching Michelle, just to connect you here. I've been coaching Michelle for about 4 years. And so we get into some real juicy stuff. And usually you keep that behind the doors. But if you really want to help people, you start a podcast and you start talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, Michelle, when we started working together 4 years ago, I think it was like Michelle's, dishing out like $100. Come on, Rhonda, I don't have much money. I don't have much money. And I'm like, oh, all right, Michelle, let's just do it. And then but through these breakthroughs, has been connection with money also. So we more than 10 times her money from where she was within this 4 years. And it's crazy because we noticed that money, a lot of the thing with money is also connected with mindset, how you believe in yourself, how you're feeling inside. And it's been a really crazy journey, Michelle. And when I'm talking with Michelle, Michelle doesn't butt heads with me. She's like, oh, you're right. And I'm like, oh, I am, like, like always questioning, like, this is just a download. I'm thinking this is where it's going. And Michelle's like, you're right. So what I learned from you, Michelle, is that I know that with these 8 chronic diseases, the most important thing that I see you flip is owning it.
Yep. And it's also stay mindful. And, the biggest thing is to stay present. Because right now I want to go run away and hide in the sand, but I can't. I got to pick
And
myself
cry
up
and
and
throw a
cry
tantrum.
and, yeah, and move forward.
I know. Well, my friend, thank you so much for being here. I will put your link and all this information. We do need people with you as you're sharing this journey. We'll get it out there even more because you can even hear, just Michelle being very authentic. And I believe, Michelle, through these years, and especially now that you have your podcast, your vocals from what you're thinking, you really come out really expressing that vulnerability. That's a superpower there, Mama. I just wanted to throw that out to you. You're showing up great in sharing while you're really going through something right now too. I
Well, I
appreciate
appreciate
you.
it. Well, thank you. I got to
You're
get to my
welcome.
appointment, so I will talk to you later.
All right, my friend.
Thanks. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye.
I don't know, CJ and Michelle. Try and get yourself out. I don't know for sure if I know how to, but you just end and then we'll talk later today.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Oh my gosh, you see
Bye.
this Fresh Talks Global Vision? There's so much inspiration to be had here. There's so much inspiration. So see where you stand in this. Okay, so I was talking about, the motivation around life and stepping yourself out there to be more vulnerable. Then we just had Michelle in speaking about she literally is in her vulnerability right now. She got something majorly given to her yesterday that's not good. And think about where you are, community, Fresh Talks Global Vision. When you have things coming at you, you think it's the end. You can't find a way out. It's that deep that she's dealing with right now. And whatever that means, right? Because, you know, she doesn't have a death wish, just so you know. It's not like that part. So don't go down that rabbit hole. But you think about it, it could be just that you broke a nail, you know, and it's that bad. But no, I'm serious about this, is that if we can have more fun in life, not fake ourselves, listen, be vulnerable with it, appreciate where you are, allow yourself to be scared, find your boldness, know that you have both sides of masculine and feminine, the action and the way to be able to find your way to maneuver through the chaos, and you bring it all together and you breathe it in. You can make some incredible changes, not just from getting you out of the rabbit hole or down in the dumps, but for some reason you feel good all of a sudden when you do that. And that energy comes from the heart. And that heart, it tells everybody that you love them. It tells you to talk to yourself, I love you. And I'm looking down because I think about just the overall higher spirit. Whatever I get to say to my body listens. Our bodies are very smart. That's why all this research out there about the placebo effect, it's crazy. But if your brain believes it's healing, something magical happens. You can get out of your stress. You can start feeling that you can see the path that you never saw before, but this path is speaking to you in a more positive way. Not the fight or flight that the brain is doing, because you know as soon as you get into that brain, you need to find some entertainment to kind of get you out of there, kind of pull you out. Because sometimes you can't just be quiet and say, okay, I'm meditating. I'm meditating because I'm really stressed. That's like the opposite of that. There's no way, unless you're a master at it. I've had some deep stress before, and I tried to do that. And then it was like, you know? And so, but you do what pulls you out of there, then you can get the magic going. Then you start feeling the bold, the separation from what you were thinking before. It goes further and further away, where all of a sudden you don't think about it. You start feeling something. You start calming the nervous system. Now you can think straight. Because if you're in fight or flight, you're cut off. Because your brain will take over and it will not let anything else in when you're here and you're only here. Now you don't know all the reaction that's happening within your body, but your brain firing, drill, stress, drill, all these kinds of things, because it's connected with a lifetime of stuff. So if you can get yourself out of there from just here, you'll start noticing your adrenaline is moving. You'll start noticing your heart might be beating on a closed pump, and your heart and your body is just like whoosh, whoosh. Inside the body, your liver, your heart, your pancreas, it has to help all that sugar that your liver is pumping in. So now your insulin and your pancreas and your liver. So insulin, sugar, just to get your body so it can pump up. Because if you're mad or angry or whatever, your system needs sugar. Your system needs to get that sugar in the cell. So now you have two organs that are overworking. You keep that up, you're going to exhaust yourself. You're going to get chronic pain. You're going to get chronic illness. But you can back it out because you stop it. Because you go, okay, brain, I'm here. Okay, And you go, here, wait, I'm going to go play video games because I have a client that does that. I go, but that's safe because go do that. Okay, go do that. Put a timer on it because all of a sudden, instead of just going and meditating and trying to be quiet from that extreme, you're just doing something or you're going for a walk. But sometimes your body stops you. You're not going to go through that threshold. You're going to feel better out there. You want to be right here. You don't want to move. So if you're a freezer, I'm that. You go, no, I'm not going to open that door today. It looks pretty nice out there. Oh, I could go in the pool. That water feels really good. No, you stay right here. So you see where your body, what your mind can do? So if you need to go take a nap or you need to go choose that video game or you need to go choose a movie, go entertain yourself. Give yourself a timer so you can break that up. And then once you break that up, your nervous system starts calming. Say it's about right here instead of going back and forth because your nervous system is shaking. It does. That's what gets everything going. That's what your endocrine system does. That's what moves and shakes everything because your endocrine system is part of your stress level here that gets held in your nerve endings. Your nerve endings speak to the cells. Your cells speak right to your health. Bringing in 25 years of health industry research that I've done, I'm an AADP certified health coach. Maybe it doesn't say much to you because maybe like, whatever. We don't have to be doctors. We don't have to be scientists. We want spiritual in there. We want that space of believing, that belief. We need that creativity. We took that creativity out of many of our kids if they were getting it through school. So I'm finding that with my kids growing up, they found their creativity. I found my creativity by starting a business and doing this. You see where I'm going? You have choices. So let's say you go do your video game or you're just, trashy stuff on the TV and people want to give you a bad time, but you put a timer on because you can do a lifetime of that and just get stuck. So you go, oh shit, I gave myself only 10 minutes. Okay, now what do I do? But I feel a little bit better. Okay, now I can go in the pool and wash myself in that water. I can go for a walk and I can hold on to my trees that have been there for me that help me calm my body. I can take my feet off. Well, I don't want to do that. Take my shoes off, put my feet in the ground, put my hands in the ground, let my spine get in so I can focus in on my nervous system. Next level. Nervous system is calmer. Take a deep breath. Release whatever you are ready to release. Now, the latest research is that if you practice this and do any step that you need to get here, this is where your pharmaceuticals start working for you. This is where protein gets produced. This is where your body gets cohesive to the cells. We have 74 trillion cells in our body. 74. We're birthing about 1 million every day. So we need that good food. We need that calming. We need that water so we can heal. It doesn't matter what you believe in. I may have said something that you said that's not truth. It's okay. It's okay because we're not in here to battle who's right or who's wrong. Just keep getting curious. There's no such thing as black and white. If you're only believing what you can see is where I come from, that's what I did. You're going to aggressively battle. I was on thyroid medicine for 20 years, and I don't want you on medicine forever. Or I don't want you on medicine to go on medicine. I want you to rid yourself of those chronic pains. And if you don't believe you can, just do some of the strategies that I just told you. Get curious and play with it. And play with it. Because that creativity brings flow, brings grace. And I really, really appreciate that. I appreciate you. As the host of Fresh Talks Global Vision, I hope I served you in the space of the opening ceremony. I appreciate you so much. Take a deep breath in. We're going to get rocking here. We're going to bring some experts in that are going to bring more spiritual journey with you. We're going to bring uh, Sabine Goerke Shrode. She's the first person that's going to be coming in. She has a podcast. And Sabina, your podcast, is it the Spirit Dancer podcast? Is that what we have been naming that as you've been launching and moving this forward?
Good morning, Rhonda. Good morning, CJ. It's great to see you again.
Yes.
It's been a while, and I love that we're together this morning. Yeah, I'm tiptoeing into the podcasting
Yeah, the
lifestyle.
podcasting area, huh?
Tiptoeing is the word, though.
Is it, Sabina, is that what we named your podcast? Was the Spirit Dancer?
Spirit Dancer, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, so her podcast is on Be Connected, and we've been streaming her on this channel that you see us right now. And I want to make sure you get her link so that you can get into that, because she's doing some really cool stuff about travel, about past lives, and all that kind of stuff. So we want to get them connected. And then I have Carolyn CJ Jones, and this is Pacific time at 9:00 today, and we're going to be working her gates kind of approach. Like, I want to see how opening gates to new things. And we're going to talk about CJ's book. She really gets creative in how she shares her story. And right now she's doing a memoir. So I can't wait to get into that. And yeah, so Carolyn CJ Jones, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, my friend. These books, The Fit Solution and 14 Days to a Flat Belly, these are on Amazon. This is what I was speaking to. And these don't go as deep as what my latest learnings are. This is about 15 years old. This is about 10 years. But this is the way to kind of work your system to get healthier. This is a lot about blood sugar balance, which we all want to learn. And this is about just doing the strategies with the 3 energy revitalized pillars. So body movement, mindset, and food. So you get that. All right. Okay. So let's transition. Let's just get a play here. My first guest is Sabine Goerke Shrode. She just got back traveling and learning about herself, almost 5 weeks. And this is not her first trip away, and learning about what it feels like to be on the ground of every location that she's at. So she is an archaeologist. So she gets really into so many things about the history of things. She is a spirit dancer. She really believes in the energy work. And that came from some really deep, dark times where she was learning about how to reach for new things and new ways to look at things. She's someone, we just interviewed her yesterday in our Mindset Matters series, where she was talking about leaning in when somebody like pretty much slapped her across the face, which it feels like if you're really in the ego, that you are the most negative person. And it just hit her in the solar plex. And she was like, oh, here, wait, somebody's speaking to me here and I need to listen. And so it started another journey for her. So if we can get more into our spirit and less into this ego when somebody's trying to express something to us, that we start fighting them instead of leaning in and getting curious. This is Sabina's superpower, by the way. Welcome in, Sabina. Welcome in.
Good morning. Thank you for making me sound like Superwoman. That is a beautiful.
I know, because you are. Sabina, what are you bringing in? I'm going to let you free flow, and I'm here for you as a host.
Free flowing. I'm actually going a little bit back to what you were talking about earlier, because it ties in with my energy work. When you talk about the processes in our bodies, it is fascinating if you really, really start thinking about it. What did you say? 73 million trillion cells, each one doing its own thing. It doesn't matter what you think. It's doing its own thing. We are marvels of energy. We're marvels of universal consciousness. Our little brains are just an old expression of thinking, but it's not what we really are. And we can influence, not influence is the wrong word, we can work with that universal power when we really start thinking about flowing with it rather than fighting with it. And a lot of us, we live with that, I have to, I need to, I want to, I should. All that are fighting words. We don't think about it that way, but they are. We're putting resistance up. When we flow with that which happens, then the universe unfolds in marvels and things come to you that you don't even expect. I do that every morning for myself. I try to live very intentionally. And so I set intention for the day. Right before this show, I set an intention for what we're going to create here on a higher vibration, on bringing light into the world. And I always, always, always say to the universe, and bring me a surprise, please. I know it will happen. Something will happen. And sometimes they are hilarious surprises. One of the fun things are, I was flying back from Wales, and I'm walking up to my seat in the airplane, and I look in the seat behind me and go, I know you. Hi, Patty. We were together in Morocco 2 years ago. And she said, oh, and Marilyn, the other woman in that triangle, is going to sit next to you in a minute. And not only were we in Morocco together, we're going to India together in February. And I mean, what is the statistical probability that you're meeting two friends right next to you on an airplane? But I had said to the universe, I'm looking forward to my surprise. And boy, did I have a surprise.
Yeah, really.
Stuff like that happens. When you set the intention, then you also start to see the surprises because you're subconsciously waiting for it to happen. And for me, it's often I run into people I haven't seen in a long time, or something really beautiful happens unexpectedly. I love playing with that. So when I went traveling, I set that same intention. There will be surprises that I don't even know, and there were along the way. I met wonderful people. I went, backing up, I went to England, to Wales, and I had a very specific mindset for it. I wanted to experience medieval history in Wales. So I went to a lot of castles. I was researching a very specific time period and a very specific person because it's tied to a past life of mine. And so I wanted to learn more. How did people live? How does that feel? What is the energy of the place? What is the energy of the landscape? Because you can read history books all the time, but being there and actually seeing how the weather is, how the wind blows at you, how the birds are flying, how the landscape shapes our lives, how castles really feel when you're in the narrow confines, and try to figure out how people lived, 30, 40, 50 people in these small spaces crammed in there, and how did that feel community-wise. So I had that kind of intention, and I got to see a lot, experience a lot, have a lot of really changes in how I thought about time periods. And what I loved about that, and again, it's something I didn't expect, it came to me, was how I started building a tapestry of different families and different castles and different points, and they started to connect. In the books, you read about a person here, you read about a time period here. It all stays kind of in its own tower. And then you're in the place and you go, oh, this is only 30 miles. Oh, they must have been, visiting. That's why they got married. That kind of stuff happens, and it becomes rich. It becomes alive. And that's what I love about traveling with an intention. I was saying to Rhonda yesterday, I mean, if you're very tired, if all you want to do is sit on the beach and relax, perfect. That's what you need at that point, and that's a good vacation to do. I typically tend to go, I can do about 2 hours of that and I'll be bored. I want to, I want to do something. So I love seeing, experiencing new things. That is my intention for travel, because it brings ideas into my life that I can take forward. And that's kind of how I build my personal travels. When you go on a tour, you are going for a specific tour outcome, but I love traveling by myself because it gives me that time to experience a place at my pace. And that's one of the things I did this time. I had this nearly 5 weeks, and I had space in one week in a whole place. And so I had time to just sit and go explore the coffee shop and start talking to my Airbnb household and getting to know people and hearing who they are and what they feel, which is very different from us in America. And I just adore that. So it's a way of traveling that really brings a lot of insights. I'm privileged. I'm retired. I'm privileged. I can do it. I can take that time. But you can also do this in smaller increments. It's the intention of what is it I want to experience? What is it I think I will learn? And then be open for that when you go forward to that. And I see CJ nodding because, yeah, I mean, you're opening your gates kind of does that same thing of letting us experience and being open to experience. Yeah. And that's the fun part, being part of the energy, being part of the flow, and consciously letting it happen versus putting resistance up. And I'm good with the resistance part, unfortunately, too, but I recognize it. And this is energy working. It comes back to what you were talking about, Rhonda, about illnesses or so. It's that feeling inside. How do I feel? How am I aligning? Am I scattering? Is my brain all over the place? Is my mind going 90 miles an hour in different directions, which it does? How do I rein myself back? For me, one of the things I can do is always breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, focus on where the breath goes, focus on how it fills my body, being out in nature, especially when I do that, and calming myself down and coming together again. Because we scatter our energies every day. And when you kind of pull that back in and become whole again, that is the important reminder to oneself. And then set that intention over and over. This is what I want to feel. This is what I would love to experience. This is what I want to give to the world. How can I do this? How is a big word in my life. How can I? How can I? Because again, it opens to flow. It's not me who does that. It's the flow that comes through me that does that. So.
Enjoying this journey, Sabina.
Yes, I do. I do.
I love that you are talking about the flow in your podcast. Why don't we go in there about the traveling, and you can speak more to that. This is something of a new journey of you really sharing with people the experience around that, and you got beginning to get your chops open in that arena. I think that's going to really serve our community and serve you and your podcast and what you're doing out there.
Yeah. In the travel, I had 4 different distinct areas, and 2 of them were absolutely feeding me. That was that medieval history and connecting with Wales is just an amazing countryside. I just absolutely fell in love with it. So and then I had 2 other areas where I was kind of just touristy sightseeing because I had never been there. I wanted to experience the landscape. I wanted to see. That was the Lake District and the Cotswolds. So I all wonderful areas and big tourist attractions. And I learned something about myself, and this is why I was laughing about sitting on the beach. I don't do just touristing very well. I get there isn't enough there to really make me feel I am at my best and highest. I realized a lot, especially in the Lake District, where the infrastructure is very small roads, very small towns, way too many people trying to see the same thing, and it just way too many energies rubbing against each other, and I just go I don't like being in that. But that is something I needed to experience for myself to really, and I've been on other trips where I've run into areas with too much tourism. But this time it was really clear to me because I came out of that beautiful Wales flow, and then I hit that and I went, no, I don't like doing this. Again, it's a learning experience along the way for all of us all the time. This, what do I like? How do I feel? Is this feeding me or is it rubbing me wrong? Does my energy suddenly start to go vibrate instead of flow? Because that's where the resistance sets in. And then once you start going down the resistance pathway, things start to happen you can't get the parking spot. You can't get, things happen that are the can'ts because that's the resistance in you. You don't want to, and suddenly the universe delivers the don't want you. And then you get into that spiral of, I don't like this actually. Take a deep breath. Refocus. What is it you want? And sometimes you just go. I had moments like that where I wanted something and it didn't happen because I wanted it in the wrong way. And I had to move on. And suddenly I had no agenda for the day. I remember that a couple of times where I just said, okay, let's just find a beautiful spot, find a nice lake that's not difficult in the Lake District, find a nice view, sit down. And then I spent 2 hours on the beach, sitting there, just enjoying the beautiful, calm atmosphere, watching people with their dogs playing in the water, watching the kids throwing stones, and just being in the moment. And then things started to flow again because then I had centered myself. Those are kind of self-healing moments. We just have to recognize we need it. And it usually means stop, sit, breathe, realign, find that beauty around you, whatever that beauty is. And if it is, I do that too. If it is a TV show or something, that's fine, or a movie. I heard that earlier. I think or if it's just going to a book, I love reading poetry. Find your favorite poem, find a piece of music. Feed yourself in the moment. That is what I learned for myself to recalibrate going forward and getting out of that resistance thinking and being
Sabine,
calm.
let's talk about some really fun stuff we were talking about. I love how you're showing up today. This is good stuff. I'm just like scrumptiously loving every bit of this. I hope you do too, audience. And CJ's like, yep.
Having a blast.
Hey, let's get in there about past lives and what you've been feeling lately about the travel and the intentional traveling. Let's go in there, please, my friend.
Past lives for me, I firmly believe we are souls in our current body, current incarnation, but we've had multiple lives going back, and our souls try to learn something in each life, take it forward. And so we, in our current life, carry memories of that. If you've ever been in a spot, looked around and said, I know this, I've been here before, but I haven't. Or you meet a person and go, why do I know you when we just met? But we are connected. Those are soul moments. Those are past life moments. That is a soul you've had in your other life. A lot of times we work in soul families, and our soul families come into our life, and we, usually children, spouses, really good friends tend to be in our soul families, or mentors, or somebody who really does something for you. Sometimes it's a karmic debt we're paying, but it's also these moments of, why are you drawn to specific places? I don't know, this comes back to the traveling. Why am I drawn to the Mediterranean always? Why am I an archaeologist? A lot of, you find that a lot, that combination. Why am I so drawn to England? Because I've had what is called a soul regression done. So I know I had lives in England, multiples. And sometimes when you start playing with that, when you go into Akashic records, when you do find out more about what happened, you start to see patterns in your own life that come out of earlier lives. And then what happened to me in this case is, one of the lives popped up in just out of a lucid dream, and it was a crusader in the medieval ages. And I got a clue there, and I started digging around. So I actually was able to identify the name of that person. So, which is really cool, And one of these days I'll have to go to France and really research him there. But he was obviously a crusader. He had connections into Wales. And that's where the Wales story comes in, because I wanted to find out that type of, what does it feel like to live in that time period? What does it feel to be in that kind of environment? And that was part of that travel. I've done that with other travels too, where I really want to feel a specific time period, a specific countryside, because these are pieces that come back. For my medieval life, one of the big key concepts that came through in that lucid dream was the word trust. Something I've struggled with in this life. How do you work with trust and with loyalty? Those are two key words. I have a much better idea now what that means, but those are concepts that I've struggled with in this life that I've now finally gotten together for myself. And that is where past life digging around is helpful, because we bring those things forward. And you see certain things, like one of the big things for me is learning. I will never stop learning. I will never stop researching. I will never stop reading. That too is a theme that goes back. It's something, and I was lucky to grow up in a family that encouraged that. So look into your own life. What is really important to you? Where do you struggle? Can it be health-wise? Sometimes it's, aches or pains or something. Can be older life stories that come back in this life. So there is a whole lot more to it than we can cover in 10 minutes here. But it's it's absolutely worth starting to look around and go, what is it I brought into this life to learn?
Yeah.
What is it? What does my soul want to grow in this life? And then really, what is important to me, which for me is the learning part, the researching part. But for other people, it's other things. Why am I focused on specific people? What is the connection there? Why am I serving them? Those are all questions to ask of yourself, because they tie into, this is what I'm supposed to learn in this life. And
So
again,
Sabina, where is this going? I know that you're talking about bringing some people together to go on a trip. Not that you have one right now and you know the date, but I mean,
this,
come on, woman. This is like excellent. This is exciting stuff to think
I know,
about. If you believe in past lives or you're learning and you want to have that
right,
information, then you get to give them this
yeah.
experience. Let's go there.
Yeah.
Woo!
My dream is to create small groups of women traveling, specifically England. Specifically, I'm very fascinated by ley lines, by sacred landscapes. That is a concept in archaeology that is coming up now. This understanding that something like Stonehenge isn't just that one spot, but it's part of a much broader landscape, and how the ancient people lived with that concept of being in a sacred landscape, in a connection with their with the universe. It's very different from how we think of it today, I believe. So I would love to take people through these kind of experiences and create a trip around that concept. To be continued. I'll keep you posted. Give me another year or so and I'll have it together.
I know. And that's what you've been talking about in your podcast, because that is like just the first initial about what well, first off, really showing up spiritually and talking about this, because so many of us talk about this, just being connected and being connected with source, and how that really helps in everyday life, and learn how to tap into that. I love your speaking about that. And then the connection of the travel, and you've been doing quite a bit of traveling this past couple of years, discovering more and more about what this means to, to be going to different places, and how you're feeling about that journey, and knowing that you want to take people on their journey like that because of your experience. So you
Yeah.
definitely, everybody, you want to be catching up with Sabina's travel conversation in her podcast. It's the Spirit Dancer, and she is in Be Connected. I get to be there as her host, and if you don't have the software yet, we'll make sure we get her direct link so that you can find your way into meeting up with her, because I think this is going to be your fire, Sabina. You're just going to be like, once you get everything rolling, but to be at this initial stage and initial conversation, this is going to be a way that you start discovering about yourself the connection of how you would say yes to being in a travel group, what you'd be looking for, how you'd be able to connect before you even got there, of why you wanted to be there, landing and just feeling what you are learning about yourself. That experience is so different than what Sabina was talking about, is like the casual, hey, let's go to, this place, let's hang out and do nothing. That feels good. That feels good. So Sabina was talking about, let's go on an adventure, and that adventure will feel divine when you're connected, because you'll feel your soul purpose of, oh, we need to go here, we need to go there. And all of a sudden the energy shifts from, I'm just going to relax and do nothing, which is good, or I'm going on this adventure to learn more about myself, my past lives. So I can't wait till we get more into that.
Thank you. Yes, me too.
Yeah. Anything else, Sabina, before we
No,
transition?
I think this was a good transition point.
How'd you feel about talking about this now? It's like you're getting because you can feel it. You can feel it. This is one of your purposes.
It's unfolding.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
Yes. And I'm getting excited about just starting to really plan this. I've had it in my head, but now it's time to put it on paper.
Yeah. And that's something new. I'm so happy that you got your podcast up and going.
Yeah.
It gives like that action and a way to disseminate that information, to get it out there for everybody, but to really know what's here, to what you want to say, to be able to describe it. So you did an excellent job today.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, when are we doing your show, your podcast the next time? Do you know yet? We can do something consistent, or is it like, what do you think? And We ended her podcast
Consistent
yesterday.
sounds good.
She'll be doing the marketing and know more about that.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just kind of like, Sabina, it's been 24 hours. Do you know yet?
Consistent sounds good. We'll work on it.
We'll work
Yeah,
on that. But you'll
yeah,
catch the marketing because she'll guide you, and I'll make sure that you get information of her so you know how to get to her. Well, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank
Excellent.
you. And I'm looking forward to hearing CJ.
I know
too.
we haven't seen CJ on the show. Okay, this show's been going for a while. It used to be called the Fresh Inspiration Show, Mindset Transformation Entertainment. I still have that Mindset Transformation Entertainment. I saw Fresh in the name, and CJ's been with us. I mean, she's been doing some great talks in our community many years. So if you've been following us, you definitely know, oh yeah, CJ, yeah, we get. But you will find that this woman is inspiring as heck. You know, there's so many stories, so I'm not going to say any story right now, but there's this one that just gets me in every detail that CJ told me about, and we may get there, but I want CJ to start off so she can guide me what direction she's going, because I'm just a guide. I'm not going to, CJ, you tell me what interests you to talk about today, because you've done many talks in your life and conversation around this. I want to introduce you to a book that I have showed our community so many times. So today I'm holding the space with CJ as she's coming in about what does your gate look like? What are you opening up in your journey? And especially with CJ doing her memoir right now, we may be going into more stories and what she's been writing about. I want you to connect with what your story is, maybe some cycles of things that are stopping you, and partnering with a conversation that we're going to have with CJ and finding your space for getting yourself out of that hole, that's area that's sticking you, to be able to really bring some life to it by motivation. So this book is called Opening the Gates of the Heart, A Journey of Healing. And I always believe that I could open any part of the book here and just have something, that CJ has done with every gate she found that she wanted to put in this book. And then she wrote about it. So and CJ writes beautifully. It says, respect of individuality. We ask others to follow our dreams, to be like us. Why? Why can we not celebrate the talents and skills and differences of each other, encouraging others and ourselves to greatness, daring to stand out, to be unique, to be individual? That is a great theme, CJ.
Thank you.
To this, because we've been talking about inspiration, communication, creativity, listening to yourself, receiving your intuition, going with the flow. And this is really about respecting yourself so that you can open yourself up to respect others at a new level, because that's how we learn. What inspires you these days, CJ, just opening this part of the book up?
What inspires me about the book?
The book, or about what got picked today? Respective individuality.
I wrote that because I had an upbringing that I was compared to two of my siblings all the time, and I was the one always found deficient. And so that brought about that verse. And actually, you said, Rhonda, that I took the photos and then wrote a verse about them. Some of them I did, about a quarter of the photos in the book, and there's 33 of them. But the majority of them, I wrote in my journal various thoughts and hadn't even seen the gates yet. And then later down the road, I found these gates and I thought, I wrote something about that, and I went back in my journals and found the verse. What ended up being the verse? Some of the verses are verbatim what I wrote in my journals. Like that one that you just read, I verbatim wrote that in my journal. And some of them I had to modify a little bit. But see, I believe that this book was divinely orchestrated. And I was just the tool used to bring it to the world. Because, I mean, that's just, who else do you know, or how else do you know that you can have these verses that give voice to these photos so beautifully, and yet the two were not even connected initially. I was doing photography, I was journaling, and they were just going on two parallel paths. So I love this book. It came out, thank you, God, because it just turned out so beautifully. And
It is.
you have the first edition, and there's now a second edition, Opening the Gates of the Heart, Images That Heal, and the Stories Behind Them. So the first part of this book is the same as the book you have, A Journey of Healing. And then what I did is I told the story behind the photo shoot for each gate. And I lapsed into spirituality and spiritual thoughts with a lot of the gates as I was writing their story. So it came out kind of nice, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. I've used your book where, sometimes I'll be with a client and I'll just be like, oh, I need to pull a card. Like, what, like that kind of thing. Or someone will contact me and say, oh, please pull a card for me. And I've used this book where I'm just like, well, let's just pull out the book for some inspiration here. And invitation to dialogue is dialogue is the next one. But I feel like this book is just speaking to so many people when you're starting to talk about that it was really, you were allowing those two that were parallel, that it was like this awakening of like this really, now you got this, now you got that, these come together.
Yes. Here's how they came together. One morning I was writing in my journal. I took the photographs of the gates in the winter time, so January, February of 2004. And I decided that I was going to sell these photos to galleries. So I had to title them. Well, so over here I'm busy titling photographs of gates. And then one morning I wrote in my journal, this is in November of 2004, I wrote, I have spent a lifetime spinning webs of terror and shame between the spires that stand as sentinels to my heart. I about fell off my chair. I mean, first of all, I don't think like that normally, that deeply. I guess there's a part of me that does, because it came from my handwriting to the page. Another point is I was journaling with my non-dominant hand, and research has shown that when we journal or write with our dominant hand, just the opposite side of our brain lights up, so that you can access information and remembrances from just a half of your brain. But when you write with your non-dominant hand, your whole brain lights up. And so think of that vast amount of information that you suddenly have available to you.
I
So
love it.
yeah, that's where that came from. And I almost fell off my chair because this photo, if you can see that it's got webs on it,
Mm-hmm.
I had just titled that Webs of Fear a couple weeks earlier.
Oh,
And now here I had the words that gave voice to that photo. And that's what started this whole thing. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I wonder what else is in my journals. So I went through my 10 journals I had at the time. I now have 30. And I have to go through them for my memoir. This is going to be fun.
it will be. You'll be able to reminisce about so much. It's going to bring a youthfulness in you.
Yes, yes, I believe that too. I believe that. Anyway, that's how the book got started. I wanted to say something to deviate a minute from the book.
Mhm.
Both of what you guys are saying just really touches me because it's a similar space to what I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a beautiful saying that has so much meaning about experiences and learning and growing. What it was is instead of just going through an experience, grow through an experience.
Ooh.
And when I remind myself to do that, suddenly my whole focus changes because I'm growing. And that makes things more palatable to take. It makes them easier to take if it's a difficult journey, difficult part of my journey.
Yeah, that
Isn't
is
that
true.
a cool saying?
It really is. I feel like there's a divine space in just bringing people together. Like I just throw stuff out there about, about us coming together for the show, and whatever happens is, I used to think that things had to happen and this is what I'm going to do. And I used to be very like, by the time the show started, I was like, oh, I'm so exhausted already before the show even started. And through the years, I am flowing and putting, ideas out there, and it comes together. And I know that when I work like that, that is where you get to, bring in the right experience at the right time. So I love talking about the Gates book. It's always been a love of mine because you can use it so easily. And I love your second edition also. That's really cool, understanding, how that came together.
How they, yeah, and the story behind the
Yeah.
photo shoot for each gate.
CJ, can we go into your memoir stuff? Like, I want to hear some stories that you've shared before, or some new ones that have been coming up as you're creating this new section in your life, claiming out there all your gems through your life, your story.
Well, sure. Well, here's a gem. I will certainly write about this in my memoir. And it is about being self accountable. Most of the time, we aren't. Some people even blame everything that goes on for them on other people or other situations. This all got started for me because I wanted to teach people I was teaching how to do a self appraisal. And I found a very simple one, but it's very powerful. And it goes like this: write down 4 kind and loving things you did for people in the last week, for others. And then you write down 5 kind and loving things you did for yourself in the
Ooh,
last
that's a
week.
tricky one.
Yes. Yes, it's more difficult than the first. Anyway, then when you get those written down, you marinate in them, if you will, and really, really feel the positivity of who you are as a human being and all your goodness and all your kindness and love. And then we're going to look at all the unkind, unloving, and mean things that you did.
Really?
And
Oh, this is good.
it is. And especially when, people go, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to be depressed when I look at this. And so here's to speak to what you guys were talking about before. Here's one way to do it is to be curious. I say the same thing, Rhonda.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, get curious. It's like, wow, look what I did. I wonder why I did that. What was behind it? And so we can begin to look at, oh, I have a hummingbird at my tree out the window.
Whee!
Yeah. So we can
coming
look
to
at,
visit.
yes. We can begin to look at what's behind what we were feeling at the time that we said that or did something. And behind anger and resentment are things such as hurt, disappointment, shame, humiliation, fear, betrayal, loss, or the threat of loss. So there's these feelings that you can identify that are behind your anger or resentment or even grief. This works for grief. And then you trace back when you first felt that.
Wow.
When you trace it back, often it's a childhood thing. And when you trace it back, you can give yourself compassion and you can speak to your child self as your adult that you are now, and you begin to heal from those things. It's very powerful, very powerful. For example, this is one of the things that I learned about myself through this process. And initially, I wasn't willing to do it because I felt like a little shit, pardon the language, but that's the best word to describe
CJ, a
it.
little shit? No way. You little spunky woman, you.
When I was married, I always blamed my husband for everything that made our marriage fail and everything that made me dislike the marriage and feel uncomfortable in it. And I realized through this process I just described that it was I who started a lot of the stuff. Like, we were heavy drinkers together, and I always blamed my heavy drinking on Rich and his drinking. He would get home from work though, and I worked out of my house. So at 5 o'clock, I'd start with my beers. So by the time he got home, I was already kind of drunk. And he'd get disgusted and join me. And I just realized recently that I'm probably the cause of a lot of the grief that I had in my relationship, which it doesn't make me feel bad. I got curious about it, but it's food for thought for how to behave in the future. And that's what makes it so powerful, because I can change my actions and behaviors the next go around for whatever the issue is. And I just love that.
Mm-hmm. CJ, I appreciate what you are sharing here. when we partner with people, it's easy to blame somebody else. And with you sharing your story, it's easy to start seeing ownership of things because we don't want to see, because we don't want to grow. But if we do want to grow, then this conversation is like right on point, which I would believe our audience is leaning in on this part of it is, oh, I'm doing that. Or they are partnering with you saying, I've discovered that about myself.
Yeah. It's like, and you said it first, get curious. And that takes the self-blame away. It takes away the beating yourself up desire and just allows you to grow from it. Just like you said, Rhonda.
Yeah. So, CJ, what do you, let's stay in the storytelling. What did you feel the steps that started bringing light to that you weren't perfect, that it wasn't everybody else's fault, and especially with your husband, because that means you had to go through a divorce. There's a lot of anger and just like working through that. What brought light to you? I find that when you get in creative mode, it really opens up and heals a lot of what you go through. But are there any specific things that you did, and when that all of a sudden started becoming more and more light and awareness around this?
It was just the things that occurred as I was going through sobriety. And when I left my marriage, I left because I had fallen in love with a dock mate. We were living on a boat at the time. And my marriage was a bad marriage. It was an alcoholic, very dysfunctional marriage. So I thought I was justified to just up and leave one day, which is, I still regret doing that because it was just cruel the way I left him. But at any rate, where was I going with that? What
I'm
did you ask
thinking
me?
around leaving. Are you jumping back into it? I was thinking that you were sharing about how you started really becoming aware more.
Oh,
Of,
yes.
yeah.
So I was in deep grief over the rejection because it turned out to be an unrequited love. And I was in deep grief for 7 years about that because I was so sure that he had loved me back. And when he didn't, I lost all trust in myself. I didn't know what to believe about my thoughts. And that created a lot of havoc for me in my life. And then I was dealing with rage from childhood issues. And so my husband, my ex, kind of took a back seat for a few years until, well, 4 years into it, I discovered a way to forgive my past. And that was the beginning of the change for me. There was such peace, and I felt freedom from resentment. I've never felt that free before. So that was the first thing that happened, and that was at 4 years. And then at 7 years, I read a book by Dr. Fred Luskin, PhD. He's a psychologist out of Stanford, and he teaches people how to teach forgiveness. He wrote a book called Forgive for Good, and in it, he defines the 3 things that we're doing when we're resentful. And they are taking things too personally, blaming others for your woes, and telling your tale of woe. The way past those, I'm going to go all the way down to telling your tale of woe. You can learn to sing your song of a hero by asking these 3 points and writing about them. And the first one is, what is the lesson that I learned from this experience? And then ask yourself, what positive thing or things occurred because of this experience? And finally, ask and answer, what can I be grateful for? I'm telling you, these 3 questions are powerful, and I worked them on my grief over the unrequited love. I couldn't help but answer the question, what was the positive that I gained from my situation with this guy? Not only did I think of one, but I thought of 5 things. The first was, my feelings for this other guy pried me out of my marriage. I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't want to be alone, you see. So this relationship, or that was intended to be, or not intended to be, pried me out of my marriage, got me sober, led me to forgive my past and my parents, and led me to write my forgiveness book,
Oh, I love this book.
The Art of
You've done
Forgiveness, A
classes
Promise
and
of Peace. What?
you've done classes and different things with that book. That's a great book.
Yeah, thank you. And then it allowed me to do the forgiveness work that I do today. Those are 5 things that I gained from this relationship, even if he and I didn't have a relationship of our own. Even though I was humiliated when he told, in the way that he told me that he didn't care for me. It kind of erased all of that, and my positive things became all my gratitudes. So I learned to become very grateful for that whole experience.
That's amazing. I giggle at this because it's such hard work. And when you get to the other side, you get to share an experience.
Yes,
You were talking about just at the pits of like, no, I'm not gonna move. I'm stuck here. No, it
yes,
feels good to be in my pity. I'm just gonna keep telling my story. People are gonna be, button up next to me, wanting to hear more of it because it's a good story. You're like, I'll at some point going and doing the work and discovering your heart, forgiveness for yourself, love for
mhm,
yourself,
mhm,
knowing that there's such a divine space that's just ready to give you, the Gates book, give you, this forgiveness work and allowing yourself to open up to that. And you had to go through that journey, and that's where you're
yeah,
finding that you want to give grace and love towards the experience. You know,
yes.
I find that every time that you are on this show, I learn something in my next layer. I can't wait to
Oh,
see
wow.
your memoir. Anything else you want to share about your memoir as we're closing off this part of the conversation?
I'm doing chapters, and I'm writing I'm writing one about Pollyanna.
Ooh.
Pollyanna was my idol in the 3rd grade. That's the opening sentence for the first paragraph in this chapter. And she was a young girl who was always cheerful and happy, and that's what attracted me to her. She played the glad game. So when people were down and out and they were being like, she hung out with this old woman who was very negative, and Pollyanna taught her how to play the glad game. Well, the glad game is nothing but gratitude. So I write about how that all came about for me and how I learned to be grateful for things. And now, having lived for 30 years as an adult with a resentment that I drank over for 30 years, and then getting beyond that to a state where I live in gratitude and positivity, is nothing but a miracle. That's truly spirit at work in my life. And me taking advantage of things that came my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
It is.
amazing.
Not
So that's
everybody
going to
gets
be
to go
one
to
of
that
my,
other side too.
I'm sorry, that's going to be one of my chapters and topics that I talk about is getting beyond the funkiness
Ooh.
and just always being negative about everything.
But I guess that's the theme, huh? We were talking about negativity. I tell you, you know, like it's easy to fall in that if you just, you know, and I mean I have big stories about that myself. This is wonderful to bring that up. People need to kind of catch themselves more on that. And sometimes you, like Sabine, I had a wonderful friend just, you know, like say to her that stuff, like you are the, you know, you're very negative, and for her to actually really lean in. And CJ, with you talking about, wow, some really, really hard times also, and learning how to call yourself out on things. And the byproduct of that is learning that positive side when you just, at that point, you just want to stay in the negativity. You're like, I can entertain people this way. They'll come on by and they'll hang out with me. But as soon as you start cleaning up that negativity, you'll bring on a new space, but you lose those friends that they were loving you telling the stories. It's like it's hard to make the switch, but when you do, you're happy doing it, and you realize you may have few friends for a while, and be
That's
comfortable
right.
with that.
That's right. And you know that as time goes on, you grow and gain new friends who are vibrating at the same level you're vibrating at. So it's a much more comfortable space to be rather than
Mhm.
always being negative.
I know, yeah, I get you. So I can see both places being comfortable, but really, when you're in the pit, is that really comfortable? You're like, oh, I'll just stay right here. But I love,
Yeah, right.
like, but you can feel the calming, the comfortable, the calming, the learning, and how when you really start doing the work, that you understand what you've been missing, and that
Right.
nobody can take that away from you. And all of a sudden, you know that you get to be your personal guide. Where if you're on the other side and feeling, no, I'll stay right here, that's when you don't really have the experience of how to bring somebody good into your life, or how it feels to have a really good day, because you can't get out of that stuff. So thank you so much, CJ. I appreciate you. And
Oh,
I
thank
love how you
you.
were like, hey, am I going to be on the show? You probably didn't say it that way, but I'm like, oh, of course you are, CJ. Of course. I mean, who would question
Thank
that?
you for having me.
You're welcome.
I always love your shows.
Thank you. Thank you. I love
You're
your
welcome.
energy, and I love the different stories. Like, we hear different stories, and if it's the same story, it's said in a different way. And I find that your learnings, and also you exposing yourself with these stories, it's sad, and you go, here, wait, that's not sad. And you go, oh, it's not sad. Oh, we get another side to that story about drinking and leaving husband and doing these things. And you go, oh my gosh, you're right. That I can see why for a moment that was sad, for how long you had to deal with finally finding the light of what helped you through that journey. But being on this side and hearing that story, I don't feel any, you know, like splatting of like this story. It's like, what am I learning in my story? And this brings the strategies and the steps to be able to seek that, because of you talking about the 3 steps into that, and wanting to learn more about your gratitude, and you found 5 ways to be grateful instead of just 1. That's
Right.
powerful. Thank you, my friend.
Very.
Thank you. I love
Thank
you, CJ.
you.
And this is CJ's book. CJ, pull up your part 2. Because I don't know, do you still have this one available? Opening the Gates of the Heart, A Journey of Healing? Or did
No,
you?
no.
Ooh, I have vintage. I have vintage.
You have vintage. I have a few more of those copies here at the house, but it's not for sale on Amazon. I mean, you would have to know me and know the book exists and want a copy, or I decide to give you a copy of that one instead of the new one.
Yeah.
But it's a nice book because it's a hardcover.
Yeah, I do love, well, I love that book because it was the first book that I got to play with of yours. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
How are
Yeah.
people
Thank
catching
you.
you? What's your email address? Is that where everybody's meeting
Carolyn,
up with you, or your website?
my website is Carolyn CJ Jones.com. And my email is Carolyn CJ
At Gmail?
Jones at yahoo.com.
Okay.
So
At
it's
Yahoo.
always my first name, my initials in the middle, Carolyn Jones, so CJ, and then my last name, Jones. So that's what everything is for me, email and website.
I got it right here, my friend. And then website. Nice. And this was your email. Okay. Got it, Mama. Okay.
Cool.
I really appreciate it's just so much fun hanging out with you. I have a smile on my face all the time when you're here. Because I mean, well, we're going into the closing ceremony. Can I bring up something and share a story that really is still in my mind about how our brain can get so focused in on something when we really, really want it, and repurposing that energy from the day that the reason why you were doing something specific, which I want you to tell the story I'll share, to actually repurposing that energy into your life and your passion, and being able to use that energy both ways. Because when you hear this story, you'll understand how extreme it is and what you can tap into. CJ, can I ask you to share a story? Are you open to sharing a vulnerable story, because that you've shared so much?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. um
I don't know what it would be of.
Well, here we go. This is the one that really catches me every time. And I think this is the beginning of our closing ceremony, because I want you to find the inspiration in this, because you're going to hear something, and I want you to think about, if you used that energy, Fresh Talks Global Vision Group, repurpose it into your passion and getting things done. And I will drive that after we get to spend some time here. CJ, when you were doing drugs, you can talk about what you were doing and stuff like that, you knew how to get to where the drugs were. So then,
Excuse me one second.
can you hear me?
There's someone at the door. I can't talk right now.
CJ's being interviewed right now. Come on.
Right.
Okay. So if that happens again, maybe we shouldn't be telling this story. It's like all of a sudden someone's knocking. Okay, CJ, you knew that you could get into a safe and get drugs. You were caught.
Yes.
And so then they learned to really block you out of that, and you still found a way to get in there.
Yes.
And why I want this is, first, the vulnerability of being this in the depths of being crippled around drugs, to really how this energy can be repurposed exactly to where we are today, and how we can use that energy. Can you please share that story about the window and
Yeah.
make it through? Thank you, my friend.
Well, we were doing a lot of coke and doling it out, and we kept it in a safe in an auto repair shop that we operated and ran, my husband and I. And I used to get in there and take some, and then I'd get in there and take some more, and my husband got upset, and so he changed the lock of the front door and didn't give me a key. Well, there were these windows that were at ground level, and they were old-fashioned windows. It was an older building that had the wood trim around the glass. So I took off the trim and took off the glass so that I could crawl into the shop. And then I put it back together after I had gotten my Coke. I was really, one night, I used to be a nurse, and I was working a shift in Denver, which was a 45-minute drive from where I lived in the mountains. And I was coming home one night after a 3 to 11 shift, and there at the very last switchback, there was a guy standing there flagging me down, and his motorcycle was laying next to him. Turns out he had wiped out at the bottom of the road, and so he didn't have any place to go. So I took him home to our place, and back in these days, you could do things like that. Anyway, I broke into the shop that night so that he and I could do Coke together.
CJ, I think, I'm sorry, I have some work done on the house, which is going to look beautiful if you can hear any of that funneling through. CJ, I love that story, and it sat with me forever, and I want it to sit with me because the motivation around, I'm going to get to something, and think about like even your passion is like the craziness, like not stopping, because we always get sidetracked and do different things. Well, think about when you're really focused in on something. This is why this story is like, first, it haunts you. You're like, oh my gosh, this beautiful CJ talking about drugs. not we're talking drinking a moment here. Now we're talking about serious stuff that's even deeper about, like, because you might have even said like little by little, like little by little, inch by inch, but just the description of what you did to get to a spot that you knew that once I break through this, and you figured out how to put the window back, so nobody knew.
Right.
Crazy,
Right.
Mama.
It was. I
I'm
was
so
very
glad you survived
crazy.
that.
Yeah, well, I used to think that I was going to die by the time I was 40. And when I hit 40, I was still living. So it's like, I guess I'll die before I'm 50. Well, here I am. I'm still here. So,
Yeah. Here you are, a love bug, and writing and doing your memoirs and over teaching at College of Marin. You're really giving back. And I appreciate that you are here on this journey, still on this earth, because every time that I get to hear a story, there's so much magic around it. Because when you see the other side and how you've been able to bring in the gratitude and what was really speaking to you, and you really speaking about like the base of the type of family you had and what you were learning as you started reflecting on that and how it helped you grow, and you got out of the woe's me. But
yeah,
for a moment there, while you're listening to this story, it's very easy to fall into that feeling of, poor us, poor you. And so I want this to be the theme of our closing ceremony. So thank you, CJ, for sharing that very revealing story about you.
you're welcome.
I appreciate your storytelling. So
Thank you so much.
if you're welcome, if we can bring all this energy together and create, like, just kind of, and bring your energy back together too, like there's things that you've been learning about yourself as you're going along, and you have your ups and downs when you start really hearing some motivation, and it can come from coming at you saying, well, I should have already done this or that, and I'm not going to say any more, but those things that can happen when you start feeling the motivation. So there's these ebbs and flows of like high stuff to thinking, your brain can only focus so much on the positivity, and still we can get into like I can only handle so much positivity. So your brain will drop right back into the negative, and you go, here, wait, I just fell into that, and it'll bring you back in. And that's what this show is about. It's about storytelling. It's about, we bring people in that aren't feeling sorry for themselves. Not that I never feel sorry for myself. Come on. A little bit of cry here and there and say, poor me, it's all my husband's fault or it's all somebody else's fault. Why not, just for a second? But
Right.
it's the other end of that story, the other end of the spot where you go, this is your pivot. This is where you get to choose your pivot. And sometimes you go, that's not my pivot. I'm going to go deeper. And that's where you learn that it's okay. It's okay. Because you had to go there. This is, the deeper you go, it's because you were holding on so tight that it was in fear of any change, because the comfort in the mind of, no, you don't want to make any change. No, this is where you're comfortable. But you can say to yourself, I'm feeling the pain, or I can feel the mental pain, or I can't focus, or it's the chaos. But the comfort of that experience, because it keeps going on. So when you sit and you listen to this show, I know everybody has something, more than even one story, that's horrific that you say, I wish it didn't happen. And these experiences, I want to give you the love for that, for you to be able to see yourself, for that space to be held for you. I bring in speakers, experts that are safe. They're not one-upping each other. We're learning to express our heart in a deeper way through these stories. And then when you hold the space for another expert and you're there for them and just listening, and not all our experts get to stay for the whole show. So it's not that they're exiting out and you've had those experiences maybe. I believe that we can create this world than what we're seeing right now. There is so much chaos and so much fighting, and it's so easy to get rubbed in these things, even if you're not watching the news, if you are even opening up just basic social media, it's very difficult to get away from like the aches and the pains, because the fight or flight, our brain, if we're staying there in ego, that's where we live, and that's where there's going to be a lot of fighting and a lot not getting along. And your old strategies from how you were raised, which it's not always bad, but through the life experiences, life is pretty brassy. And that, then you start building on that. And if you stay here and you're not bringing in the things that open you up and listening to your intuition and the trust within yourself, it's hard to learn how to trust yourself. When you were a baby and you came into this world, you can see babies playing with their toes. You put a mirror up and they're just like, maybe they don't make that noise, but they're like, oh yeah, I'm cute. Look at that. Somehow it becomes difficult to look at ourselves and tell ourselves we're beautiful, because we believe something physical is supposed to show up based on people that are in their brain and creating so much out there that's very masculine. You do it this way, you do it that way, and it's very stringent. And then that's where the chaos happens. Where I like to bring this show with each expert coming on, because they've been speaking for a while, they know where they're going. They don't need me to guide them at all. I just get to play with them. That's why you should start a podcast, and I'm here for you if you want to do that.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah, CJ. Memoir time, podcast time.
Yes. Can I say one quick thing about, well, two quick things about growth?
You sure can.
The things that bothered me, that I was resentful over for so many years, I mean, I learned to be grateful for the abuse that I suffered, because it brought me to where I am today, and my experience can be useful to others. And I wrote an email to the Unrequited Love, maybe a year ago, if that long, thanking him for the rejection and sharing the 5 gratitudes with him that I had gained from that rejection. So it became very powerful to be able to do that.
How did he receive that, CJ?
I don't know. I quoted my first 2 paragraphs in the book, which describe his rejection of me and what he said to me. And then I left my Amazon link for the book, just in case he might want to look at it.
Yeah.
Well,
he's a superstar in your book.
Yes. For weeks before I sent that email, I had no sales. For weeks after I sent that email, I had no sales. That very day that I sent the email, I sold a copy. And I will wonder to my dying day if that was him that bought a copy.
You know it was, Mama. He had to, you know, and you wonder what part of journey he's on too. You know,
Yes.
so that's great to be able to share that also. And I love how you're saying how you show up today is that's why you get to bring in that gratitude and what's happening. So everybody out there, Fresh Talks Global Vision, I feel like we nailed it. I really do. There's just so much love and experience, and I will make sure that you get to connect with the experts. I'm going to be bringing links and any way that you can connect with them. I love Sabina has this thing, and I don't know if Sabina you're going to release this, but on Sabina's website that she has a book, and it's great guidance. Sabina, I know you don't talk about this a lot, but your book that you have, your PDF book, what is that called? What's your
That's a good question. I should know that. It's about how to use energy to keep your vibration high.
Oh.
So there are different steps on what you can do on a daily basis to feel better about yourself and to feel. And the website is spiritdance.energy, www.spiritdance.energy.
All right.
That sounds worthwhile to get. Very much so. I'm going to get that.
Vibration. Spiritdance.energy. I love that. I love that it's not .com, that it really gets in alignment. CJ, who's that kitty that's coming to visit? Hello, my friend.
That's Ruby.
When we're talking energy, the cat comes along. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the
So
little white
what do you
mustache.
think out there, everybody? What are you seeking for change for yourself? State it. And what do you see in the gratefulness, the gratitude that you can put towards that? And maybe right today, maybe there's only one thing, or you're in your journey where you can throw out 10 things. And to be able to see the other side is what's going to bring even more abundance in your life, more love in your life. And if you're ready for that, sometimes that's a hard decision to make. Sometimes sitting in the story is where we get stuck. I welcome you in to that other side, because this is all about mindset transformation and being entertained. Let's keep entertaining that brain so that we can keep our heart open and our spiritual journey and get these downloads. I know CJ and then also Sabina, with you ladies working in on your downloads, it's interesting when you start opening your life up to listening to it makes you smarter. Like you just, all of a sudden you come up with things that you're like, there's no way I could have created this. And I believe that even in this, what I hold is like freedom, safety, and healing. And this all came from just a bump bump kind of a vibe, bump bump. So I was getting these 3 words, and the 3 words I was just putting in column 1, column 2, column 3. And I had no idea that my first plaque, which I have 3, were going to be something that I utilize, from health coaching to business coaching to just everybody that I work with about lifestyle is, what pillar are you working on? Are you working on healing your body? And that could be physically, emotionally. And I was like, well, these are just words, right? I mean, these are words. Like, what does this mean? How can I get people into exercise? Because maybe, yes, you got this, which is the first step. Well, how does that affect healing? The next one, impact. What does that mean? So from there, I started learning my new definitions that I couldn't just go to the Webster Dictionary. And I keep saying, I'm going to write another book about the Webster Dictionary, and we'll call it the fresh inspiration of dictionaries, something like that. I just made that up. But when you start looking at something that just looks so plain, all of a sudden you go, well, why is it here? Now that curiosity from a divine download that happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times and more, except 3 plaques of the word, bump, bump, bump. Just put it in the column, Rhonda. Something's going to happen here. Now I know why I need to feel that I got this. I know that my brain is saying, you don't got this. You're not worthy of that. You're going to stumble today. And wherever the brain goes, right? But I need that so that I can start on my internal healing. Remember, I am the voice to my body. I'm the one that gets to say if my body's healthy that day by the way I talk to it, by the way I bring food, by the way I move my body, which I call the 3 energy revitalized pillars. I believe that we need a Moxie lifestyle, tenacity, Moxie, loving it. So the Fresh Inspiration Show, or Fresh Talks Global Vision, that this sponsored show that I do every Monday, 7 a.m. Pacific, is the Rhonda Lou Moxie Show. This is about starting your week working the pillars. What's the word I'm going to use for the day? So I go through each spot and I go for that moment, for that Monday. I choose one based on where we're at. So now you have a journey of, I want to get more tenacious. And remember CJ's story of her finding the other side of the story of pulling the window apart, going through the window, knowing what the safe was, that someone said, I'm stopping CJ. And she says, no, you're not. When are you in your life saying, well, you don't believe that what I do is good stuff? And anybody naysayers, we're out there. People say crazy things. People in our family say crazy things. Friends say crazy things because they just don't understand, because you're learning to vocalize what you're doing. Then CJ closes the safe, crawls through the window with this magic powder that she thinks is magic for that moment. It's going to save her. It's going to create this real fun excitement with this person that she just met, because that's where her mind is. Think about this. Your mind gets sizzled on all the stuff that's going on out there. And you think that's good. Yeah. And you're like, but I want to feel like, yes, I got this, but I'm on the sizzle that puts me in chaos because I'm thinking about stuff that I want to hear about, people, incidents that are happening. I just want to dive in there. But what if you repurpose that energy and you get motivated by what CJ shared, what Sabina shared, what I'm sharing now? The other side, that sizzle is for a moment. That sizzle separates your energy. There's fears that come in. Your heart doesn't open up because you're scared. Now you can have variations. I'm not talking down to you. Come on, let's get with this for you. Breathe in. Think about where this is taking you. The other side is stepping in to creating your own thing, realizing that you are high creative. This is your time. This is your time to open the gate, as CJ would say, to open the gate. She didn't know that she had two sides that were going to come together. Sabina didn't know that someone was going to call her out on something that was totally stopping her. And it was a generational thing. She knew that she had issues with what she was dealing with while growing up. She just knew it, but she knew that I'm not like that. Someone calling her out on a generational thing that she finally got to break so that she could learn in the next 5 years, which is her last podcast. She's talking about this. The next 5 years took her on an experience to learn about the condition that she was dealing with and how to start creating something more positive in her life. And a friend did that, but a friend probably got a download to say, I have the balls to say this right now. So where are you right now with this? This just represents you and your next journey. Now, breathe that in. This side, your passion, the energy that we're bringing from the CJ story, that deep intention. You got this. I have faith in you. Hashtag. I got you. We're all speakers. This is your time to open your vocals. I got your back. You come and connect. Rhonda Liebig. You come and connect. Carolyn CJ Jones. You come and connect. Sabine Goerke Shrode. There's so many people out there to support, not look down upon you, not think that they're above you, that they need to teach you something, but to be there as guides, to support you when you are not feeling so strong. I love you. This is what we're doing here. Stay close to us with our sponsored shows, with our Mindset Matters series almost every day now that we're doing. With the Rendezvous Moxie, I'm there for you every Monday. And that's just where I get to be with you. I have about 20 years experience now in speaking. I want you to step into your divine space. What I'm doing here, think about it's been 20 years of speaking. I want you to start your podcast, get your vocals going. And it's not going to look as smooth as this. It doesn't matter, because what you say is important. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you need to lose weight, if you need to wear more makeup, or you need to wait till your face looks a certain way, or you need to have your nails a certain length, or you need to, for your relationship to get better so you can focus, that is your story. Let's get you out of that. Let's get you out of your story. I love you. Have an incredible day. Fresh Talks Global Vision, we're sending you love. Appreciate you. Hashtag. Let's go. Love you.